Welcome back to the Game Link podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Lebby, and as always, I'm joined by my friend Elmer here.
Hey there, Hoder.
Today, we're going to be talking about Donkey Kong Country, the TV series, and also the game. But before we get into that, how was your week, Elmer?
A little crazy, a little hectic here and there, but at the same time, I get to have kind of a semi-relaxing Friday afternoon of a day off. After recovering from getting my booster shot as well as my flu shot on Thursday, which, dear God, I haven't felt like I got hit or beaten to death with a baseball bat like that in such a long time. So that was a treat this year. So they upped the strains, so I'm feeling extra healthy.
Yeah, I should probably get another booster soon. Did you see anything fun or?
Let's see, this week, did I watch anything fun? Actually, this past week was kind of a laid-back week where I didn't actually have a lot of self-discovery. A lot of the shows that we have been watching have come to an end. I just realized last week I forgot to sing the praises of the third season of Harley Quinn as well as the second season of Primal, both of which ended last week and were fantastic. Mm-hmm. But, this past week it's been kind of meh. Oh, that's what it was. My Blu-ray Special Edition Steelbook of Cyber City 080-808 actually came this past week. The transfer is amazing. It's still letterbox, so it looks kind of cheesy like that. But no, the sound as well as the colors just pop, and it is as amazing as it was the first time I saw that on VHS as a kid. So
I think you're the only person I know that still buys like physical media.
It's the only way you can actually watch that thing within good resolution. That's the hard part. So
yeah, well, that's cool. Let's see, what did I do? We're still house hunting, which is extremely frustrating, and everything gets bought out for cash. So that's still happening. But besides that, let's see. Oh, I watched Freaky with Vince Vaughn. It's like a slasher flick where he like switches bodies with a high school senior girl, and he's like a serial killer. So, like, I don't know. It's great. I'm not going to ruin too much of the plot, but, like, if you haven't seen it, I was very pleasantly surprised by it. It was a great watch. And let's see, what else? So I think I got this new laptop. I think that happened. Yeah, I talked about that last week. But I bought my girlfriend a new MacBook Pro. So now we both have new laptops, and it's pretty nice. Yeah, and then let's see. I've been playing God of War again, but this time on my Steam Deck. I've played it twice on the PS4, once on the PS5, and now I'm playing through on my Steam Deck just because I love that game. So.
Are you talking about the OG or the Norse mythology reboot one?
The Norse, God of War 2016 or whenever that came out, 2018. Yeah, great game. So maybe I'll end up streaming that. Who knows? But Steam Deck can handle it like a champ. I mean, the fan really gets going, and it's cooking. But, it runs great. So that's pretty cool. Oh, boy. Let's see.
Oh, that was what I should have brought up as well. One of the things myself, Archangel, and then some other good friends of ours got to do this week. We went on a little pilgrimage to about 2 towns over from where we live up north in mid-central Minnesota. And we got our hands on one of our favorite seasonal things on the planet. Southern Tier Company's Warlock and Pumpkin beer, which I've been sharing with Levy tonight here. Both the Pumpkin, which is their pumpkin ale, that is 8.6%. It tastes like you're drinking a pumpkin pie.
Yeah, it's good.
And then the Imperial Pumpkin Stout Warlock, which is my personal favorite, which is a pumpkin and yam beer. And as Levy put it just perfectly a little bit ago, it's like a pumpkin cookie in a bottle. So, you know what? I will take that. It is probably the only sweet thing I drink on a regular basis. So,
yeah, it's pretty good. I guess last week we also forgot to talk about the Nintendo Direct that happened because there was a little bit of hot gaming news there. But it's just like Nintendo announced a bunch of like farming simulator games. So, yay. But they also showed off the new Zelda trailer, which does look pretty good. I'm I think that might be the only thing I saw that I'm actually gonna play.
So this new farming kind of game thing they're doing, pardon me, is it more like Animal Crossing like? Is it more Farmville like? So they're going the Capcom route, or is it more like Microsoft where they're doing the farm simulation thing?
It's more like Harvest Moon, like Stardew
Oh,
Valley, that type of thing. But like a lot of the games they announced were all just like, yeah, take care of animals and have a farm. And it was like, oh, in this RPG, you play like this guy who takes care of animals and has a farm. And then the next game is this. It was just so many of them, one after the other. It seemed like.
so how long is it going to be before they release Nintendogs, the open world game?
I think they've given up on Nintendogs. Thank God.
It's like Reverse Stray.
But yeah, let's talk about something that I'm actually excited about, Donkey Kong Country. So we're going to talk about Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo instead of talking about like the original Donkey Kong, just because, I mean, Donkey Kong Country I think is more iconic in a lot of ways, and that's what this TV show is based off of. So
One day when we do either the 1933 or the 1976 version of King Kong, then we'll do the original Donkey Kong.
yeah, we could definitely do that. But before we talk about Donkey Kong, I feel like I have to talk about Rare just for a second. So Rare is like the developer. They're a small company from an English town, and it was originally called Ultimate Play the Game. They made games for small 8-bit computers like the ZX Spectrum and the Commodore 64 and stuff like that. Eventually, like when the NES came out and they wanted to start doing stuff with Nintendo, they changed their name to Rare, and they were one of the first like Western developers to be granted a third-party license for Nintendo. And one of the cool things they would actually do is like reverse engineer the hardware, so they'd like figure out how things work so that they could really like get the most out of their games and optimize stuff. Which is something they kind of did for like a long time with the NES, the Super Nintendo, the N64, and the Game Boy. Like they were pretty much a Nintendo developer for a very long time, and they kind of revolutionized a lot of games on that platform just for like technical ability. So like they even created custom arcade hardware for Killer Instinct.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what? I can kind of see that because of how much on the original SNES I played of Donkey Kong Country. A lot of the background shading and stuff like that, I could really see a lot of that going into like the background shading and the stylization of Killer Instinct. Oh my god, that makes sense.
Yeah, they used a lot of the same assets for Killer Instinct and stuff like that. So
Now, is there an unlockable playthrough of Donkey Kong Country where you get to play as Raptor or Orchid?
I don't think so.
Or can you play Killer Instinct as Diddy Kong, just whooping ass on Kilgore? Please,
Definitely
please?
not, but that would be cool. But the Kongs are Nintendo property. um, but yeah, so they let's see. They were a pretty rad company. One of my favorite stories that I found was so they developed everything in house, and they had these like purpose built, like purpose designed cartridges that they'd make their games on. And like one of the guys was having this weird bug where he just like couldn't get the game to boot, and it would go wrong like fairly often and fairly predictably. And he like spent so much time trying to figure out what was going on, and he'd written like the entire code and designed the cartridge himself and whatever. And he was just kind of complaining about it to one of the other guys, and this other guy just kind of sat there quiet, and the guy's like, "Oh, he probably doesn't care. Why am I complaining?" But he just goes, "Let me try something." And he licks his finger. He puts it on the back of the cartridge and turns the Super Nintendo on. The game boots right away. He just like figured there was some. He just thought it out. So like these guys were really into like what they were doing. It's pretty cool. But yeah, so eventually in the 90s they decided to invest heavily in Silicon Graphics, which is like SGI. It was like the breakthrough of like 3D modeling and stuff in the 90s. So it was a gamble because it was really expensive for those machines and stuff. I think one machine in the 90s was like 80 grand or something. Um,
Is that 80 grand a day money or then money?
90s money,
And are we saying American dollars or are we saying British pound at that point?
American dollars.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But because they were a third party developer, they had access to Nintendo's catalog, and they asked for permission to make a game using Donkey Kong. Um, and so Nintendo like pretty much agreed right away. And so what they did was actually pretty cool because they wanted to make a game that kind of pushed the limits, and so they modeled everything, the background, even the letters on the screen. They modeled everything in 3D, and then like made a 2D sprite version of it to play it on the Super Nintendo. So the rendering of each 3D model would take ages. They would work until like midnight. They'd go home and just hope that in the morning the image would be finished rendering. It took so long for them to do it, and like the machines had to be carefully managed, and they were really hot. They had like a massive air conditioning unit just to cool the machines, and they'd all be like suffering and sweating their way through the summer, but it didn't matter as long as those images got rendered, you know.
Hilariously, when you talk about that, the same thing happened at Industrial Light and Magic around the same time when they were working on Jurassic Park. Apparently, they quadrupled the electrical bill for Skywalker Ranch because of the AC budget that they had with how much electricity, so that way they could get the T-Rex rendered over the course of the summer of 1992. They're like, come on, come on!
Yeah, stuff like that blows my mind. Oh man, I'm so glad modern computers aren't that bad. Um, but yeah, so even though Donkey Kong was a beloved Nintendo character, it didn't seem like Nintendo really cared too much about what Rare did. Like they'd go really long periods of time like working on the game without any interference at all. And then when they would get feedback, it would basically just be like, make it better, make that better, make this better. It was like pretty hands off, and so they were really given freedom and like ownership of their ideas. And like even when it came to like the soundtrack, they thought that Nintendo would have like an in-house sound engineer do the soundtrack. So they only made like 3 songs as a demo for the game. And then when Nintendo got the demo, they liked the song so much that they just asked Rare to make the entire soundtrack, which if you didn't know, the soundtrack for this game absolutely fucks. It is so good. So good. And that's because the Super Nintendo, unlike the NES, it could actually like sample sounds, and it could play 8 sounds at once, where the NES could only play 5 technically. So
that may be true, but can't Michael Winslow himself, the human mimic, can't he do at only 6?
I'm not sure.
I'm joking.
But yeah, so it really shows that they cared about this game and they cared about the soundtrack. Actually, during the development, they would frequent a nearby zoo and like study how the apes moved and the ostriches moved and all that sort of stuff so that they could get the animations correct. And they even planned on getting a lot of the in-game sounds from the animals at the zoo, but they found out that the animals don't really make noise unless it's feeding time, and then all of the animals are making noise, so they had to scrap that idea. But I mean, it's pretty cool. Like you can really tell they cared about it. It took about 18 months to develop, which even back then was pretty quick. Towards the end of development, they got nervous because there was another game announced that used CG graphics. Uniracer. Have you ever heard of it?
I have not. What is Uniracer?
You play as a unicycle, and you race against the clock or other unicycles on like tracks. Like it's like a side-scrolling track. It's kind of hard to explain. It's a really simple game with a simple concept. So this game got announced, and Rare started to get nervous.
So wait, it's a unicycle racing game that's not Happy Wheels?
Correct.
Oh, okay, never mind.
This is before Happy Wheels. This is
Oh. Spiritual
on the
successor, or a
SNES.
spiritual ancestor.
Yeah. So yeah, Rare started to get nervous because they wanted to be the only game using CG graphics. But like once they saw Uniracer, they were relieved. Not because Uniracer is a bad game, but because it's not anywhere near as technical. So, like I said before, everything in Donkey Kong Country was CG, like the backgrounds, the text, everything. The only thing in Uniracer that was CG was just the unicycle. The tracks in the background and everything were all still 2D drawn.
There's an old saying, sometimes it's not the best to be the first, it's the best to be the best. Think about it this way. What do you remember more so of? The CGI characters in, like I brought up earlier, Jurassic Park, Terminator 2, The Abyss, or that god-awful looking owl in the beginning of Labyrinth?
Jurassic Park for sure. But yeah, like one of the only regrets that I've seen online about the development of this game was the map system, like the overworld map. When you go from level to level, it's just dots in a straight line, and they really wanted it to be like more of the character would follow a path, but like it doesn't even matter. Like, it's between the levels, and they just didn't have time to put that in the game. But it's like that's their only complaint. Like that is awesome. That does not make a difference at all, you know. So the game released just in time for Christmas in 1994, and was obviously a smash hit. It was definitely one of my favorite games as a kid. Like my sisters and I played this game a lot, like over the course of years. Like I've never actually beaten it, but you know that didn't matter. We were kids. It was fun either way.
I'm in the same boat on that. I played this game on both the Game Boy as well as the SNES back in the day, and yes, I can confirm this game is so much fun to actually play it. To learn it takes minutes. To master it takes lifetimes.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the Game Boy version. If I can hear, because yeah, Rare. Like I said, they kind of like to push the limits and like reverse engineer stuff. They got the 3D modeled sprites onto a Game Boy Color too. Like they're nuts. Yeah, obviously the game had sequels. There's the Donkey Kong Country 2, which I own for the Super Nintendo as well, and then Donkey Kong Country 3, which is the one I don't own. But yeah, Rare even made like Donkey Kong 64, and then they went on to like Diddy Kong Racing and Banjo-Kazooie. Like they were just like Conker's Bad Fur Day. They were releasing bangers.
GoldenEye,
Yeah.
freaking Perfect Dark. It's you look at all of those games they did for that era, and you're just like, my God, they must have been living like kings. And then Microsoft came calling.
Yeah, and then Microsoft bought them. So if you didn't know, we'll kind of touch on it a little bit. After the N64 era, Microsoft bought out Rare, and I think they even like rehired most of the programmers and stuff because Rare became the Kinect developers. So Just Dance and Kinectimals and
Perfect Dark Zero.
yeah, things like that.
And Banjo-Kazooie, Nuts and Bolts.
Oh yeah, they did Nuts and Bolts. Yeah.
As I famously said as I walked into the store he was managing at the time, our good friend Cool Cat, I walked in, looked him dead in the eye one day and said, "Excuse me, sir, can you point me in the direction of your $1.99 copy of Perfect Dark Zero, please?" And he laughed, and then he realized I wasn't kidding, and he was able to actually find it in the catalog.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of sad, but a lot of the people that worked on the Donkey Kong Country series came back to work on the Donkey Kong Country like reboots for the Wii and the Wii U and Switch and all that. So like
Donkey Konga?
no, I don't know about Donkey Konga. I mean, maybe. I haven't looked up who worked on that game, but yeah, the Country series is definitely iconic. So
I mean, hell, one of the first references I ever heard in a movie about video games like contemporary video games of the time outside like the frickin' Wizard is in Billy Madison when brings up the fact that no, Donkey Kong Country is the greatest game for the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, and that's one thing, because Rare was like they're basically a Nintendo developer, but they weren't. Like they were their own company, and they were releasing such bangers. Like Nintendo had Super Mario World, Rare had Donkey Kong Country. And then when it was like Mario 64, there's Donkey Kong 64. And so like it seemed like to some people it seemed like Rare was just trying to make better versions of Nintendo's games. Like you had Mario Kart and then you had Diddy Kong Racing. But the developer or the CEO of Rare like came out and said like, no, that's not at all the case. Like they have a really good relationship with Nintendo. They're not trying to compete. But yeah, I think I do like most of these Rare games better than... Like, I definitely played more Donkey Kong 64 than I played Mario 64. So, yeah, Rare's good stuff. If you haven't played their older games, emulate them. You should do it.
Like, honestly, no, if you get a chance to play some of the N64 games, with a modern actual control scheme, no joke, GoldenEye and Perfect Dark play really, really well. Once you actually have a twin stick for playing it, moves so much smoother, and yeah, both of them still are very fast-paced, very fun shooters.
Not to mention, I have to talk about Conker's Bad Fur Day just a little bit.
You can't see it, but it's on the shelf behind us. Actually.
It is, yeah. It's on the shelf behind us. It's a very collectible game. It's not extremely rare, but it is pretty rare. But it's a game about a cartoon squirrel, and you think like, oh, this is great for kids and whatever. But no, it's the cartoony game on a Nintendo system that's made for adults, and I think it's like one of a kind for the N64. It's a lot of fun. They did a really good job with it. So.
It's for adults, but it's the most 13-year-old humor you've ever seen in a video game.
Yeah, and I think it might not be TOS for Twitch. I would love to stream it because I own it on N64, but it might be against terms of service because they have some pretty raunchy jokes in there. But
yeah, they
anyway.
bleep out a lot of stuff, and don't they do a little bit of fuzzing and black boxing too?
Maybe. Anyway, so before we move on to Elmer's bit of it, I just want to preface and say we didn't watch the entire TV series. We watched what's called Donkey Kong Country and what was it, like The Legend of the Crystal Coconut or something like that.
Something like that.
It's basically just like 4 of the TV series episodes.
Considering there's 40 episodes in that, and we watched 4 of them, I'm going to say that with a good representation of 10% of the series,
yeah,
I've got a feeling we'd both be having an extended stay at the Nut Hut if we were to continue with our viewing pleasure of this series. So yeah. I think we've got a pretty good bearing on it with this, which is kind of cool because the version of it we saw was a pan and scan someone had of their Paramount VHS where they had promos for Rugrats and the Peanuts on it.
Yeah.
Oh, it was delightful. Oh.
Yeah, the Rugrats commercials like took me back. That was pretty cool.
And also, now I realize why my parents always giggled so much when they heard little kids yell, "I love the Peanuts!" And how it seemed really hard for them to pronounce that correctly without a full set of teeth. So I'm just like, oh, God.
No, they had these kids.
It's the cutest, sweetest little kids talking about how much they love Charlie Brown and Snoopy, just screaming about peanuts. And without a full set of teeth, it's hard to pronounce peanuts.
Yeah, they go, I watch Peanuts movies with my mom and dad. I watch Peanuts movies with my dog. It's like, it was so good. I might have to just like upload that singular commercial to YouTube.
The best part is too, and then it just cuts to this single shot of a beagle sitting on the same chair the kids were a second ago, and it goes woof. And I went after the kid said, "I watch Peanuts with my dog." I have expected all of a sudden when that dog barks, all of a sudden a red rocket to come out and go, "Oh, there's the Peanuts."
Yeah, it was great. So, yeah. Anyway, what'd you find out, Elmer?
So sometimes in history, while an event in and of itself may not have the greatest bearing on history for its single momentary situation, the everlasting legacy of it can speak volumes to the world.
Oh boy.
Welcome to my TED Talk today, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Barry Elmstrand. I go by Elmer. Today I want to tell you about the importance of Donkey Kong Country and the legacy it has left behind. So, Donkey Kong Country here, along with the inspiration from the Rare games, as well as the original characters created by Nintendo, the two brainchilds of this series was a company called Nirvana from out of Canada, which has been a powerhouse of an animation studio since the early 1970s. They just celebrated their 50th anniversary last November. Nirvana has had its hands in the pie of just about, well, most of actually entertainment television suited for children for the better part of half a century now.
Damn.
They originally started out, they did some Christmas specials, The Gift of Winter, which is Night Out, The Devil and Daniel Mouse, which later went on to inspire one of your and my favorite sort of 1980s underground rock musical, adult-themed, genre, which only it and heavy metal share. The furry masterpiece that is Rock and Rule.
Yeah.
Which actually has better music in it than heavy metal. And trust me, as much as I love the music in heavy metal, I love heavy metal, they don't got Iggy Pop. They sure as hell don't got Lou Reed, and they sure as hell don't have Debbie Harry and Earth, Wind and Fire.
Rock and Rule is a much better film.
It is fantastic, but after that, where they unfortunately kind of didn't make their money back in the budget, they had to go back into television, as well as doing kind of promos and intermittent things for movies. They famously did the animation sequences for the Three Amigos Campfire song. But they also did some of the touch-up animation, as well as kind of the main animation for classics such as Inspector Gadget, a lot of the stuff for Deke from around that era. For anybody who grew up with basic cable, or not even basic cable, but just antenna television as a kid, you know everything that these guys were pumping out back in the day.
Yeah. I forgot about Deke.
I didn't know about this. Apparently, they did the first 5 seasons of Fairly Odd Parents.
Deke?
No, Nirvana did.
Oh, okay.
Which I was just like, right. But let's see, Rock and Rule, Inspector Gadget, Strawberry Shortcake, like all of them. Care Bears. They were the original animation directors behind that.
Oh, really?
They did both droids and Ewoks for Lucasfilm, which will come into... That'll be important a little bit later. They partnered with Scholastic, working on Clifford the Big Red Dog, and then later the Magic School Bus.
Okay.
Which is just like, holy shit.
Yeah, they've done, like, everything.
1990s, Eek the Cat. Apparently they worked in the Little Bear series, which, sure. Did he have to be naked? But, okay, guys, thanks. They did the Babar TV series as well. Some show that sounds amazing called Cadillacs and Dinosaurs that I really need to see.
Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. I'm going to look that up.
It's as awesome as it sounds. It's based off a comic book series about a post-apocalyptic Earth with dinosaurs. Apparently they did the Franklin series, which I'm just like, alrighty.
I remember liking Franklin when I was a wee lad.
Oh, well, I did as well. And then, this is going to really, and I mean really not surprise you. Because of the influence they had with the other animation studio that they partnered on for Donkey Kong Country here, and the distribution for a lot of their series, Nelvana did a lot of the importation and localization for a lot of the other Japanese and Taiwanese different marketed TV shows. One of them, that Nelvana, they have done for every single one. Nelvana is who we have to thank for bringing Beyblade to the United States. At least in North America, I should say. Forget Canada.
Oh, man. Dude, well, I looked up Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, and that looks
awesome.
Badass.
It looks sweet.
It looks awesome.
But there was yet another entity that helped to go into the production of this series. There's a company. It is the longest standing since 1978. It is the longest producing and most successful animation studio in Taiwan.
Oh boy.
Wang Film Productions, their subsidiary, which is CGCG. And it's a computer animation studio, which, along with Nirvana, they share with this television series
Oh boy.
an important milestone. It was the first fully motion capture produced TV series. When you watch this, the one part of it that has stood the test of time the best is the actual the character interaction with their environments.
Mm-hmm.
Characters actually feel like they have weight when they're moving it around. They actually look like they are touching the ground when they're walking because they were able to implement where the actors were walking around for the animators.
Yeah.
It actually allows it to feel realistic. Now, I mean, you compare that to, say, like Reboot or Beast Wars that had come out years earlier, or heck, even some of the animated series that were going on around the same time in '97. You feel like at any second, characters are going to either drop through the floor, or they're going to start floating up to heaven like Poochie on The Simpsons. Let's go. My planet needs me.
Now, don't get us wrong, though. That doesn't mean that the animation in this show is good.
It is very not good.
It's just better in some ways than stuff that was also around at the time.
The legacy, the pedigree that this has, because of the animation they were able to put forward with this, CGC to this day actually has an incredible track record in terms of some of the productions it's done. They were later hand-chosen by Lucasfilm to work on the Clone Wars TV series, including the new episodes. They're still producing the new stuff that Disney has put out in the past couple of years, like Rebels, the lost episodes of the Clone Wars, and now the Bad Batch that's going on. Now, I kind of set you up a little earlier. I said it makes so much sense when I tell you this other program that they did. These guys, CGCG, were the same people that did all of the Bionicle movies.
Oh my god, those movies are awful, but I know I saw the first one in theaters and I loved it. I was obsessed with Bionicles. I wish I still had them. They're probably still at my parents' house, honestly.
But along with that now, CGCG is also the head of a CG animation for Netflix right now.
Oh.
Some of their most famous and popular series right now. Fast and the Furious, Spy Racers, Jurassic World, Camp Cretaceous, Abby's Playhouse, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, and DreamWorks Dragons, The Nine Realms, and Kevin Bacon. Sorry. But, yes, no, just kind of the pedigree behind that, too, of the fact that this show beat... sorry. It just puts a smile on my face because they're kind of celebrating Avatar this week, just to really put us in a bubble because they re-released it yet again in 12 years. Thank you, James Cameron, you money-grubbing whore. But, yeah, they re-released that for Avatar 2. That is going to be coming out this winter, which, if you care about that, dear God, what else have we been doing for the past 12 years? Anyway, just think, before James Cameron ever had the concept of maybe I can make an entirely mocap film, Donkey Kong Country beat him to the punch by 40 fucking episodes. Do you think that maybe that's how he came up with the concept of Pandora, was just a fever dream like he had while watching... Like how he came up with the Terminator, he had a fever dream while working on Piranha 2 and dreamt of a metal skeleton coming out of a fireplace. He's sitting there having a fever dream while working on Titanic, and Donkey Kong Country comes on at 5 in the morning
Banana
on Fox Kids.
Slam! Oh, man.
I must make a world of blue monkey people.
Oh, man. Wow, yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy that this absolute stinker of a turd came from such established studios and stuff.
Which have even gone on to become even more popular and established in the past 20 years. It's just in 25 years now.
It's nuts.
Now, here's the crazier bit. here in North America, this show has basically languished in a combination of obscurity, and as you and I then found out when we looked up the IMDb information and found out that this collection of this video release is currently sitting at a 6.9 out of 10 on IMDb. Apparently a bit of a cult following.
Yeah, a little bit.
What was the review we read? The guy said that this is up there with Pulp Fiction and The Godfather for him in terms of storytelling.
Yeah, he says it's an absolute masterpiece, a relic the likes of Pulp Fiction and Godfather.
But yeah, no, because of kind of the cult following that this has garnered, everybody from Shout Factory, who is kind of the masters of sort of like cult media releases
Obscure
in this
media,
cult and obscure media, as well as Paramount apparently has been fighting to try to get the rights back on this for the better part of about 10 years now. But yeah, North America here, it was not a hit. It apparently first debuted on the Fox Family Channel, which for people that don't know, before it became ABC Family, then it became Freeform, and I have no idea what the hell it is now. There was the Fox Family Channel, which was produced in-house by the guys who created fucking Power Rangers and did like all the music for like all of our favorite TV shows as a kid, like Inspector Gadget, Transformers, G.I. Joe, like what is it, Shooky Levy and something Saban. I can't remember his first name. Yeah, these two Israeli guys that aren't Golan and Globus of Canon fame. The other two guys, they basically created our childhood as we kind of know it in terms of distribution with that. Yeah, no, they financed Fox Family Channel, and by extension, when this show was bought up and then put on both, this aired the first night that Fox Family became a thing, and then aired the next week on Fox Kids.
Yeah.
So they got to make so many people miserable with the airing of that first episode.
They really had high hopes.
But yeah, it was not a hit here in the United States. However, overseas in Japan and Oceania, this show is apparently like beloved. All 40 episodes over 2 seasons is beloved. It's like, man, y'all can have it.
You know, as a kid though, I would have loved this.
You never saw this as a kid?
No, I never saw this as a kid, and I would have loved it because the character models are almost exactly what they used in the games, except for, I mean, obviously there's some like uncanny differences, but like the look and feel of it was really like familiar, and like even though I never watched it as a kid, I did have like a lot of nostalgia for it when we were watching it, which was weird.
I can tell you right now, you're gonna wish you never said the look and feel of it with as much love and aspiration as you just did. I was gonna say, oh, you mean the very shapely, buxom asses every single character had with a defined ass crack?
Yeah, no, like the graphics and animation are simultaneously the best and the worst thing about this movie. Like I said, it looked like especially like the enemies, like the rules and the pirates and stuff, they looked just like the enemies do in the game.
Oh, they definitely did.
And like the Kong's models are like a little off, but you got the gist, right? It had like that familiar thing, but it wasn't good.
So can you confirm for me then how close it was with the different rules? The one like Sergeant Commander rule?
Yeah.
Did he have nipples in the video game as well? Because that was really unsettling this entire time. Mostly because of the fact that they're reptilian and crocodiles don't have nipples. But
I don't know. Let me.
We must find this out live on air. Do crocodiles have nipples? No.
Yeah, they gave this croc nipples in this TV series, and it doesn't make any sense.
It just gives you something even more to look at. I mean, his character design is already really unsettling and kind of gross looking, and then all of a sudden you're like, he has big brown nipples. What?
Yeah, I'm trying to find a picture of him. Is it the Kremlin crew? No, those are the pirates.
But hilariously, before even the first season was up.
He has nipples in the game.
Oh, he does? Oh,
yeah.
God.
Yeah, he's got nips.
Nipping for days.
Yeah.
Even before the first season even finished here stateside, Fox Kids actually moved this to like the early morning, which is how I remember watching this at like 5:30 before fucking Critter Getters. Before Fox Kids, and I remember seeing it back then and going, "Oh dear God!" Which hilariously, the episode I specifically remember seeing, we actually watched with this today, and that was the one where DK, Donkey Kong, for those not in the know, where he actually gains amnesia. I remember seeing that episode as a kid, and I remember being, a 6-7-year-old kid even look at that and going, "Wow, this looks really crummy," and then switching it over to This Old House with Bob Vila. So that'll tell you something.
Yeah, so like we were gonna kind of talk about the plot, but really it's almost non-existent. It's a show for kids, like young kids, to like laugh at the stupid, ridiculous, tropey things that little kid cartoons do, like falling off a cliff, but staying in the air long enough to look down and go, "Uh-oh." That sort of stuff. So as a young child, I think I would have liked this a lot, but it was kind of hard to sit through. And so there's also really weird things with this, like Cranky Kong can just teleport. I guess that's new.
Anytime he's in the present, I mean, he's able to do it anytime he's in the presence of the crystal coconut. It's like
or not. Like I don't know. It seems like a really random thing he just does, and he does it a lot.
Like he just bamfed out of the scene, and both Levy and I looked at each other and went,
What?
What? I'm like, did the tailless Nightcrawler just bamf over to somewhere else on the map? What's going on? It was just literally a flash of light, and we went, "Where'd he go?"
Yeah, and then at one point, the pirate he's talking about like his late and great grandpappy, may he rot in hell. Like, what? I thought this was a kids movie.
I'm like, this is on par with like freaking Muppet Babies, and he just went at someone's rotten in hell.
Yep.
What the hell is this? Freaking David and Goliath? Jesus.
So yeah, each episode is basically just like they have this crystal coconut that whoever has the coconut rules the island or something. And it keeps getting like stolen or given away or tricked. It changes hands a lot, but at the end, it always ends up back with Donkey Kong.
And then there's singing.
And then there's a lot of singing. And then
I had forgotten about the singing.
And then the coconut will get stolen again, and then more singing, and the singing. Oh God.
A little better than High School Musical, but still, the singing, man.
And they also use banana phones, which once I saw that,
ring, banana phone.
Yeah, I had that stuck in my head for a good 10 minutes. And after the first couple times that the coconut is stolen and returned, we were thinking, okay, it's almost over. We're about to get out of the woods. And then we realized, nope, there's another hour left. So yeah, more coconut getting stolen and various hijinks. Funky Kong makes an appearance, which I always thought Funky Kong was super cool.
I always thought it was disconcerting because even though every other character model in the games always had one or two other pieces of clothing, which Funky Kong does as well. He has his bandana as well as his sunglasses. I don't know how, but Donkey Kong looks less creepy only wearing a tie. Yeah. I still feel like Funky Kong needs to be wearing pants, though.
Yeah, Funky Kong looks weird in this, and he's the only one of them that's Jamaican. Let's see.
It also doesn't make any sense considering they're all West African species, and yet there's a Jamaican guy.
Yeah, I don't know. But throughout these 4 episodes, Donkey Kong says "Banana Slammer" more and more as the movie goes on, which that was kind of cool. Let's see. At one point, Cranky Kong gets Candy Kong to try and jog Donkey's memory,
Candy Kong, or as I called her earlier, the fourth and final head on the furry Mount Rushmore.
It was a weird scene, making Candy Kong be all seductive and flirty. It was weird.
It did it, and it probably does it for somebody. But yeah, for the rest of us, we're like, ah.
Not in this show. In the game model, sure, sure, but let's see. Yeah. Anyway, it was like 4 episodes. They're stupid and boring. At one point, they help a claptrap, which is like the little blue alligator guys. They help a claptrap get its teeth back, and it eats an entire pirate ship. The end. The end.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is that week's educational part about having pica. See ya, kids!
Yeah, so... Do you have anything else to add, Elmer?
I described this while doing my social media turn on this as this being my own secret 8th circle of hell, and I'm going to stand by that. Like I said earlier, this series felt like I was getting a ice pick lobotomy. I still don't know if I'm going to get all the vision back in my right eye after this.
So was it a bop or a flop for you, Elmer?
Well, considering I found out that the entirety of this series is on Tubi, you better bet your sweet ass I'm going to be watching more of it.
Oh, it's all on Tubi.
I'm going to be watching more of this in the future, especially if a few things get fully legalized here in the state of Minnesota, but we'll wait on that. But, yeah, no, this, on paper and on execution, this is a flop, but... on excavation and on historical precedents, this is a bop, man.
Yeah, a lot of cool stuff about it. Yeah, no, I'd also say it's a flop. But if I saw this when I was like 6 or 7, I would have loved this. But either way, yeah, I mean, and if you've seen like the Zelda animated series or the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, you know how bad those are? I would much rather sit through hours of those shows.
We were discussing what we wanted to do today, and I said, so what do we want to do? And Levy goes, oh, let's do a series like either Donkey Kong Country or Castlevania. And I go, well, we haven't done the first Castlevania series yet, so we might want to wait on that. And I sent him a gif of Simon Belmont from Captain N the Game Master, and he goes, oh, fuck, I forgot about that. So in the future, we'll have to do Captain N before Captain N before we do Castlevania on Netflix, I think.
Yeah. Oh, boy. But, yeah, no, it was not good, but I would say it was a fun time.
Mostly because we just sat here the entire time like, what?
Yeah, I wouldn't watch it alone, but I would definitely talk shit about it some more with a friend.
Well, as we said when your partner came home at one point, it's like it'd be less awkward if they walked in while we were watching porn. It honestly would.
Yeah, it wasn't great, but if you want to give it a watch, you could have a good laugh or two at this show. So, with that, I think we might end it here and do a Q&A. Yeah, so if you're listening to us and you want to watch us on YouTube, or if you're catching this on the video on demand and you just want to listen to it on Spotify while you work or whatever, go to gamelink.click. You'll find all of our links to everything there: our Patreon, our YouTube, Spotify, everything. So, and I'm pretty sure we're on most podcast apps, and if there's one that you want us on, let us know and we'll make sure to get on there. But at this point, I think we'll call her quits. I don't know what we have planned for next week yet, but I'm sure it'll be good.
Well, considering next week is the first weekend of October, so the full-fledged spooky season, we're kind of discussing whether or not we want to do something kind of spooky.
Yeah, spooky, and we're gonna have a guest, at least one guest, in October. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, we'll see you next week, folks.
Stay safe, stay sexy, folks.